In the previous lesson, we saw how we can work with time and we can manipulate and warp the time using effects and using the tracks here and the spatial and the temporal interpolation. And also how we can hold a frame, how we can go inverse and so on. Now in this video, we're gonna work with more effects and we're gonna specifically work with the effects and presets panels right here on the right. We already used some of these effects earlier. You can also find those here in the effect menu. And also here, if you go in animation, we can browse some presets. But let's get started with a new project and a new composition. And I'm gonna set this to be Full HD and just change the color slightly. And let's say okay. And let's first start with some really simple effects. I want to start with simple text. So I can go here to layer and create a new layer text, or we can just create a new text from the text tool. And I'm gonna paste here some text that is gonna be like a placeholder. I don't really care what's written in here. So it's the standard lorem ipsum. And just gonna make it less words here. So I'm gonna delete some words. Oh, I can just like do 3 clicks, select everything, decrease the size. There you go. So we can see the full text. And let's say I want to like delete this part here. Okay. And why I do this? Because the more text you have, the more shapes you have. So the effects are going to be heavier. Now there are some effects that are really heavy. So be careful on, how to use them. And when you're overlapping them, they're going to become heavier and heavier. So start with simple things. So what I want to do before I start is to go to the Windows workspace and check if we are in one of these other workspace right here. Well, right now we are in the default, but we do have an effects workspace. So I'm going to use this one. And it's pretty similar to the standard one, but we can see up here the properties, the info, the preview, and the effects. This is the one we want. And then on the left, we can see the effects control or management panel. So this is where we're gonna manage our effects. So let's start with a text animation. Now you can go here and you see, for example, you have text, but these are not presets. These are the standard effects. If you go here, you have animation presets and you have others that are like ready-made for you. So I can go here in the text. You have a lot of these. So you have, for example, animate in, animate out. So I'm going to use for animate in here, I'm going to use a typewriter effect. So I'm going to click, you can click and drag this directly into the composition in the layer that you want to animate or in the track here in the timeline. And again, this is specific for text. So there are some effects that are specifics for some particular type of layer. So also the current indicator is here at the beginning. So this is where the effect is going to start. And you can see that it's recalculating, so it's re-rendering again. Remember that you can always manage the rendering from the preview panel. So I can reset this. I can make it faster by decreasing some of these values. And you surely want to do that if you have a lot of effects later on. So if I press the spacebar now, I can play back the animation, which is pretty fast, as you can see it. And up here, you can manage the animation. So you can see the, for example, slider, checkbox, menu, and so on. Now, also, if you expand down here, you can find the animation somewhere. So if I go into text, you can see here that you have text and effects. So here you have the effects, and we can already see some keyframes. So if I click here, you can go in the animation, which is basically the slider. So the slider is going to from 0 to 100. Now, if I pick this keyframe and I make it farther away here, let's say to 10 seconds, well, the animation now is going to take 10 seconds. So it's going to be quite slower. And it's probably better for the typewriter effects that we're looking for. Now, with these effects, you can add titles to your animation. If it is like a short movie or a presentation, wherever, you can add titles. And you can make things appear, so animate in, or you can make them animate out. To animate out the text, I want to leave it like for a couple of seconds here, and let's go to the 14 seconds approximately, or I can be precise if I use the time code here. So I can push it 0. So this is the 14 second. And I want to go now here in the animation, and I want to go in the browse presets. Now, when I go to browse presets, it's going to open up Adobe Bridge. And Adobe Bridge, we already talked about Adobe Bridge previously. It's really helpful here because it's going to show us some previews of the animation. So here we are in the presets right now. You can see the folder here is preset, and we are inside the After Effects installation folder. So if I scroll these horizontally, you can keep the libraries interface here. It's going to be fine. And if I scroll horizontal here, I can look for the text folder, which is this one here. So I double click, or you can change this if you want and visualize it in another way. But I'm fine with this. So I'm just going to double click here. And you can see we have animate in, which we already applied one. So let's go for animate out. And look at these beautiful effects that you have. So this is, for example, kind of a disappearing movement, and this is fade out without kind of encoder effect. And this is raining characters out. So also pretty interesting. So you have a lot of effects that you can just, apply. Now I like this rain out. So to apply this, I'm just going to double click. After Effects is going to open again. And now this effect will go from here on. So if I press the spacebar here, you can see the effect. There you go. So depending on what other effects you can add, well, it's going to be heavier or less heavier. Now, for example, if I right click on this layer and I start to add blending modes, layer styles, well, that's going to become heavier and heavier. So if I add, for example, another glow, well, it's going to be heavier to render because we are like summing up different effects and style. So be careful not to add too many things. That's my suggestion. Keep it simple, and then when you're ready, you can try with something more complex. Apart from these animation presets that you can see right here, and you can see there are some for the text or some for the shapes and others that we're gonna see later, like in a brief tour. But you also have these others, and these are like, we can call them standard effects. So you have effects that will change the blurriness or the sharpness of the image. We already used some of these previously in other lessons, or some for color correction, which we again used in the color correction lesson. And you have also other effects that will generate things that are not actually there. So some of these are to improve the image. Some of these are to generate something that is completely not there. Or we also use the keying for the key light and to remove the background and so on. So you have different types of effects. And also for the audio, we have some other effects. Now, I want to show you here something that I apply usually to the text, because usually the text, let me increase the resolution to full here to see better. It's kind of pretty neat, and that's not really realistic. So what I definitely do when I animate the text is to apply a motion blur first, if I want to like move the text around, and apply it, of course, also on the text. But also I will add a blur in general. So I will go here to blur and sharpen, and I add a simple blur effect. So let's go for fastbox blur. I'm going to click and drag it and increase a little bit the effect right here. Well, this is going to be really like subtle and almost invisible. It's just going to be a really small blur on the edges to make it look, well, less fake. So, and less, let's say, mechanics is going to be a little bit more blended in the rest of the footage. So that's one thing I do. But you can also animate these if you want and create a blur in or blur out effect, which you already find, by the way, you will see in the effects. So here I'm gonna just decrease the blur radius and make it like 0, 1. So it's gonna go from total blurriness into 0, 1. And of course you can like make this faster or slower.